Please welcome team from Tinder.
Hey. Swipe right. Alright guys, thank you so much for coming tonight on Wednesday. And we did this presentation many times before about like negative things about Appium. We're basically going to help you out to make decisions. Both of these frameworks are phenomenal, and we're basically here to help you out to make a hard decision in your company. Just FYI. And previous presentation from Azad, right? Was amazing. Thank you so much for preparing. We're not even close to you guys. All right, let's start with a formal presentation. Today I'm going to co-speak with Boris. Boris is an IS developer at Tinder. You want me to move? Hey, camera, what's up? All right, so Boris is IS developer at Tinder. He is an amazing guy, amazing developer, and he's also in extreme sports. He likes snowboarding, kite surfing, you name it. So he is pretty cool, not like me. My name is Igor. I've been in this industry for 11 years now. I work at companies like Barnes & Noble. Has anybody used Nuke before? Yeah, that's my baby. I actually delivered the first one in Shenzhen, China in 2011. And I work at the Expedia as the first engineering manager to build test automation for mobile. And now I'm at Tinder as an engineering manager and in charge of mobile releases. So I'm more like in DevOps, test automation, DevOps automation, but in mobile context, not the back end. So another thing we do with Boris, we actually also founded a company in 2013 called Code Fitness. We teach people how to code for test automation engineers, but more like on mobile. So we are focusing only on iOS and Android mobile. So we also do that as a fun part of our lives. Let's move on. One more. Awesome. So the industry, testing industry, in my era shifted so fast. When I started in 2008, it's nothing like it is today, right? Who remember the J2ME phones? Remember those like Nokia N75, N95 brick phones? Hey, that means you're old. Welcome to my era. So yes, and today everything is so different. Whatever we used to watch in the movies as a kids, it's actually true. It's happening today. So in QA, quality assurance world, things also shifted so quickly, so you have to be very agile. You have to be up to date and understand what's going on. So before we're going to present the difference between the two amazing platforms, we want to talk about where we're at right now, what's going on in our industry, in test automation in particular. So today, mobile DevOps process requires fast and reliable feedback. So we are in an era of speed. Everything has to go fast, right, and very stable. So that means that next one, more testing activities have moved from post-merge effects, right, when the code been merged, built, and developed and deployed, to the pre-merge into development process, right? And you feel it. It's a painful process, but it's happening as we speak. And that shift, in my opinion, started somewhere around 2012-13. So it's not like overnight. We just continue moving faster, and we have to respond to that. It's very important. Let's move on. So shift left. How many people here in the room heard about the term shift left? Good. That means you're going to keep the job. Yeah. So shift left actually means that the whole process of testing, moving from right-hand side when the build is delivered to you already, the bug's already been introduced, to the development process before bugs were introduced, before the code was merged, before the build happened. That's what we call shift left. In simple terms, test earlier. That's what the shift left means. For that reason, we need a certain criteria for this test. We're talking about right now about automated tests, just FYI. Scalability, right? We need to know how to scale, right, in height and width, both directions. Reliability, we cannot afford test flakiness at all, because if we move into development process, that has to be rock solid. How we can achieve that, right? Speed. Who is ever done development here before as a developer, besides Boris? Good, so we have 3 developers. That's amazing. 4. Yeah, somebody like maybe used to. Yep. So for those who are developers, you live in continuous integration system. You make a pull request, and usually you want to get a quick result, right? You want unit test, code static analysis, check, run, right? Linter, and you want like in 5 minutes feedback, so you can understand, is your PR qualified for visual review by other developer, right? Who want to wait 2 hours, right? So for functional tests to be part of it, right? So you need speed. Speed is so important right now. And orchestration is like how we can enable, disable tests without commits, how we can actually make our test to be very configurable within the pull request, right? So we're talking about development process right now, right? That's what the shift left is. Let's move on. So, continuous integration system. Can you stop for a second right here? Boris is fast, he's developer. You see that? Like click, 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 done. All right, so CI, what's a CI? Continuous integration system, right? Means that continuously code that is committed by developer being merging, tested, right? Unit tested, you name it, continuously, right? So continuous integration is happening in this way. I'm a developer. I wrote like a very small subset of feature, a few lines of code, and I open a pull request, right? And usually my pull requests have to go through certain checks, like unit test and lint, right? If those checks are checked out in GitHub or Bitbucket, then what happens, Boris? Boris look at my pull request and says, yes, the code looks good, so we're ready to merge it, and that's when we have the build different like flavors of our app into the release, like deployment branch or hotfix branch or develop branch, and then we deliver a build to manual testers for validation, right? That's what most companies are working today, right? This is the process, the flow. And then a lot of testing, including automation, happens here. It's called post-merge, right? After things happen. So, by the way, at this point, developer might have already introduced a bug. So the bug ended up in a build, and we are finding the defect, and we say, hey, developer, I found defects. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna fix it like next release. Thank you, thank you. Great job, QA person. So in the shift left, we're shifting the testing activity from here to here, before, right? Before we merge the code, right? How many people done this before, besides myself? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. That means we are playing catch-up game. And a lot of companies, and I'll give you a few names who already have done this. LinkedIn, 2016, there's amazing blog post 3x3, right? It's very good, I recommend to read. They actually changed the entire engineering department to adjust to this process. Expedia did that in 2016 as well. Tinder, we're almost there. Right, it took me like 2 years to get to that point, right? There's Fitbit bracelets, you know, Fitbit company, they're already also doing this. That's the companies that I know, but a lot of companies still go through the whole process. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so in order to qualify for the speed, and we're talking about speed right now, right? And stability, native instrumentation frameworks came into the picture. And those are XC test, which is actually people call it XUI test. It's not. It's XC test library. XUI test is just few classes. It's been there forever, and they just added the library to do functional UI testing. And Espresso, by the way, Espresso do not exist anymore. We just use that term because people are familiar with this. They're called Jetpack right now package. It's called Android testing library that unifies just few libraries for Espresso and UI Automator It's just the old name, by the way. It doesn't exist anymore. So those frameworks were built for developers. So why we're all here? That means we are shifting towards development. If we want to comply with shift left movement that happens right now. Okay, let's move on. And I want to actually, before I pass the microphone to Boris, tell you that we'll try to explain you when make decision what's the major difference between the Appium and those native frameworks. And they're not, I would say, you shouldn't think about it, you should use one or another. It's one is complementing another. And you have to understand it very well, it's crystal clear. It's not, I've seen companies that use both. And this is very successful, right? And then Boris right now, we're gonna draw the line for you, so when you're gonna make a decision, right, you will be crystal clear about expectations from your management, okay? Boris?
Thanks, Igor. Hey, everybody. So, yeah, as Igor mentioned, shift left is happening already. We can argue that, we can think, well, we can do it later, but it's happening already. So we need to understand how to meet the criteria and how to do this. So, Appium, amazing presentation. Most benefits and drawbacks actually were told already today. So let's just sum up really quickly. Yes, it's open source, it supports lots of different programming languages. You can start almost immediately to do some testing with this framework. It's really easy to write some easy tests there. I mean, basically it's just a subset of WebDriver protocol over HTTP. So if you're familiar with Selenium and WebDriver, it will be super easy to you to understand what's happening there and how to actually code something in Appium. It works awesomely for hybrid apps, which is a huge benefit. It's, I would say, the biggest one. Eventually, it was developed to, like, the main feature of Appium is to support both iOS, Android, and Windows apps, right? But unfortunately, in the real life, if in your company both iOS and Android apps exist, you know that there is no moment when they are completely the same. Some features are done on the Android and will be developed in iOS like in half a year and vice versa. So apps are kind of different if you're using native. So that's a myth, that's why. But again, for hybrid, it works awesome because it's really, it's doing its job. React Native, yeah, things, and Ionic, Cordova, all that stuff. So it's really easy to start, many programming languages, but do we need many programming languages? Well, yeah, Espresso supports only Java, Kotlin, this is a part of Android, but maybe it's time to learn something new, right? To shift toward development. So let's move to Espresso. Yeah, thanks. Espresso, much harder framework, really. This is Android native framework. Android developed it. Android supports it right now officially. So this is part of Jetpack SDK now. And you need to be a developer to do the real job there, like at least junior dev. But things that it allows you to do, they're awesome. They're, first of all, we know that we need speed and scalability now, right? So we will have a demo for speed, which will show the difference in terms of speed. And due to scalability, nowadays to do the real, first of all, you need to separate backend and client testing, right? It's just a case, you don't, like, we run all tests against stop nowadays because you don't want to test production, and production is slow. Production backend can change responses. Production backend is doing some A/B testing. You need to be able to do some error cases. You need to be able to test analytics. So you need to, first of all, mock the things in the app. And you need to do those changes in the real app itself, not the testing framework. You change the app. So to do that, you need to be in the same code base with developers. You need to have an access to source code, first of all, right? You want developers to see your pull requests, to entertain with you, to see what are you doing there. You can ask for help. You can do whatever you want with the app itself. In terms of Appium, you can just do your job in the testing framework. It's totally separate. It doesn't have anything in common with the real app. So, the API is really small. So, and there is a recording feature, so people who do it first time might think, well, it took me like 5 seconds to record my first test. But if you really want to achieve shift left, it should be scalable it should be stable as a rock. You don't have a right to have a flaky test now, because developer makes a pull request, and if it fails and he's blocked because of some flaky test, well, the whole concept does not work. We'll freak out, obviously, right? Because we've done our job and we want to merge it in. And suddenly some test is flaky and it just fails my pull request, and fails my CI. So it should be super stable, and obviously it should be fast. So generally it should be faster than unit test check and link check. I would say on average it's 30 minutes, the maximum. So in Tinder we have 200 tests, and we run it in 20 minutes. 5 minutes is build. So 15 minutes for 200 tests on 5 devices, and it's really scalable, so you can add 20 more devices and improve. There is no need for 20. We've done some experiments. 10 devices is the most optimal. We achieved something like 15, but unit tests are 30 minutes anyway, right? So anyway, between 30 is okay. Developer still waits for unit tests, so it's okay. Okay, let's see our demo. So we prepared a couple of tests, same tests in Appium and Espresso for same app. Let's see both framework in action and just see which one is faster, much faster.
How many tests?
I think it's 3 tests here. We do 3 tests here. Yeah. And we'll show the time for the first and versus second. This one is Appium, right? We set up the Node.js server. It takes some time to launch. Okay, this is a special app for testing purposes. We use it in our bootcamp in Code Fitness. Okay, first test. Second test opens the map. We'll talk about this a little bit in more details. And third test. We open the dial number and verify we call the restaurant. And it took 42 seconds. 42 seconds. Now we'll run same 3 tests in Espresso. First test. Second test.
Go off.
Same test, guys, same. Third test, we're done. It took, I think, 9 seconds, because build is obviously same, right? Build took half of that. So 45 with 9, as you can see, 5 times faster. Again, we don't want to say that we don't need Appium anymore. We call this presentation Appium dead, but that's not true. It's still valuable for such things as, again, hybrid things and all this stuff. And we saw the companies that use both, it's true. But if you're doing automation tests for native app, and you want to shift left, you want to include those tests in CI, you can achieve much faster tests and much stable tests, much more stable with the Espresso, in our opinion.
Yes, and I want to emphasize, sorry, in a summary, a few things. Like for instance, there was a demo with the map and the phone number. It was for a reason. There is such thing as called intents in Android. How many Android developers here? Good. You know what's intent. So we actually not asserting a physical phone number, because every Android phone has different UI, native UI for phone number. That's where actually Appium will fail big time, and we actually assert that the right phone number was sent as an intent. We intercept intent. It's called intent stubbing. And same thing with the maps. So your test, when you are testing against multiple devices, it actually, that's where Espresso is going to be much more beneficial when you want to try those things. Another thing is parallel execution is we call test sharding. Sharding is actually not only parallel execution, but actually divide all the tests and shard them across devices for the speed. There's a framework called fork. There's spoon, fork, all utensils, right? The butter knife. So fork is actually a predecessor of spoon. It's helping to do sharding out of the box, give you amazing result. It's done by Shazam and supported by Shazam. Also, you can fork the fork and implement your own stuff on it. So, but here's the interesting summary that will help you to make decision. So Espresso, used by developers, that's the key. It's not easy to write good tests in Espresso, I'll tell you right away. You have to be a junior dev or a true stats. I mean, we're talking about Google stats. Like, you have to know like how to read the code base of Android. It's a fast and reliable. It's definitely scalable because you work pair with developers. And best to use for pre-commit. That's the keyword. And CI, feedback validation. Okay, that's important. Appium, used by QA people. It's a black box automation used by QA folks and automation teams. It's mostly full coverage with better validation. Is basically good for regression testing that runs post-merge a few times a day, not every commit, but that let's say you can automate like the most important business use cases in Espresso, run every PR and every commit in the PR, and everything else you can do with Appium, right? So that's why I said it's actually complementing each other. It's good for, like I said, 90 execution, and best used for full regression testing, right? So that's what you have to always think about is, if you need speed and be part of the development process, and you have intention to become Android developer, Espresso, what we call automation test library, is your choice. That's if you want to become Android developer in the future. If you are like quality assurance, if you want to stay in QA, if you want to help manual testers to automate regression, Appium is an amazing choice as well. Okay, it's all about choices. So we just try to help you out with choices. And next slide is just QA. I'm sure you have questions. Feel free, raise your hand. At Tinder, yes. And it's, like Boris said, inside the code base, same repo. And the benefit is very simple. When we work with the same repository as developers, when we write a test, it has to go through two checks. Means the two devs have to look at it. If they don't, because we're not the best devs, right? And they can recommend you, say, hey, Igor, I'll tell you how to write it in a better way. So we're in the same code base, yes. Both Android and iOS.
Is the Apple equivalent difficult to work with as Espresso?
They are very different, very different. I would say that XUI test close to Appium. They're more like black box. Nature of iOS platform. Espresso is actually embedded. You have to use with the dagger if you use dependency injection. And you can actually, there's no such thing as wait in Espresso. They have idling resources. That's why you've seen the speed. There's no waits that don't exist. It goes with the UI thread speed. But if network thread thrown like a separate, like you can actually slow down it. So it's completely opposite. You're not waiting, you slow down, they have to go with this. So it's very fast. On XUI test, there's no such thing. So it is very different frameworks. They're both native. So whenever the new SDK arrives, you get the latest and greatest stuff, right? You don't have to wait for him, to get it right away. But they're different. Yes.
Are you guys still leveraging Appium?
At Tinder, we do not support Appium. We do only Espresso and XUI test.
And do you guys have separate STATs actually writing the tests?
We have developers, and they're were hired as STATs, but they get the same, they're devs. Yeah, that's why I was, for instance, for XUI test, we have a team of 3 STATs writing tests, but they're actually devs. They also do other things. That's why I said DevOps, right? DevOps wasn't just a fancy word there. For instance, Boris can tell about what IIS team doing on the DevOps side.
Yeah, so nowadays automation teams do not do only automate testing. It sounds really funny, but it's how it is. So we automation team in iOS, for example, but in Android, same thing. We're doing different interesting solutions with DevOps, as Igor mentioned. So we automated many Jira processes, many GitHub processes. We cut branches automatically. We protect them. We back merge release branches to develop daily. We many things that string translations we do. We automate processes in the company. We automate everything that can be automatable. We automate it, and usually you need DevOps knowledge for that. You use Jenkins, you use AWS, you use scripts, you use shell scripts, you use Swift scripts for that. So many scripting things. So that's closer to DevOps than to STAT.
Yes, multi-hat role, yes.
I remember a case from Juno when they have 200 instrumented tests and they take 2 hours, and they have 27,000 unit tests and they take 20 seconds. The question is, do you know what's happening with unit tests in Tinder if they take 30 minutes? Yeah. How many of them it should be, or do you just have
3K. We have 3K tests and iOS unit tests that take 30 minutes in Circle CI right now. We do unit testing in Circle CI and we do UI testing on Jenkins, and then pull request grabs reports from there, and provides to you.
So did I get you right that just unit tests take 30 minutes?
37 right now.
How many of them do you have?
3K, 3,000. Yeah.
Okay.
It really depends on the nature of unit tests. If unit tests are asserting one function, like 2++, it is super fast. But sometimes unit tests are doing much more deep things. It's actually integration tests. It's kind of similar even to UI tests. Of course, UI tests covers in more UX perspective. Yeah, but unit tests nowadays also is can be kind of hard. One unit test can take time.
Yeah, it all depends on legacy code. It also depends on the architecture, and because of every company has been more than 5 years in business, they have legacy. And dealing with this is not easy, as you have to quickly move on. So that's why, for instance, on IIS, the biggest problem is parallelization of the test. That's why we get that much time. We cannot parallelize them. At least for now, it's a big problem. Yeah. But we're working on it, yeah. Usually, unit tests for mobile apps are not that as quick as for, like we said, Java backend, right? They're a little bit more brittle. So, yeah.
So how many threads do you have right now?
You're talking about parallelization?
Yeah.
For Espresso? So we have, as we speak right now, we have 5 devices per each Jenkins node. So whenever we have 3 PRs, 3 pull requests in parallel running, so each of them executing this, and it's about 20 minutes. We can scale, we don't have to, because we're quicker than other checks. And once we need to speed up, we just can throw more devices. However, as we speak, we move to the Docker Kubernetes implementation, we work on it to use scalable architecture, and we're going to emulators for those tests, because we can scale pretty quickly.
That's about Android and about iOS. So we all know that Xcode 10 supports parallel testing. However, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. So yeah.
Whenever you write a test, right, and the guy right over there is out looking like, you not guarantee the test actually runs stable. You think it's going to run locally, but in CI, nobody can guarantee it. How it's going to behave out there on AWS device farm, God knows, right? So for that reason, we created quarantine. Basically, the test has to run in CI 10 times successfully in a row, then automatically gets into the suite. If it's failing, it will keep rerunning. So quarantine helps us to mitigate flakiness on both the new coming test and the test we fix. Right? It's a basically internal web service that we built for this called quarantine, just like a regular quarantine, right? And we also the same tool called test orchestrator. It helps us to let's say I make a test and it happens in CI, but it fails not because the developer introduced the bug, but because the feature changed. So I don't want to block developer. Like Boris will get so pissed at me, he's going to run with a baseball bat, right? It's like, Igor, I cannot, for 30 minutes I cannot like merge my PR. So what we do, without making consecutive commit to disable test, we disable test in the web service and it removes right away so developer get unblocked. So we build all this, like I said, STAT is not only writing tests, it's a solutions, right? It's architectural solutions. So you like, even, I would say it's a true engineering job. Just let's be transparent, right? You have to be a true engineer. Any more questions? Last question?
So would you consider Espresso and XU test to be actual black box tests or not?
Espresso, absolutely not. As I mentioned, there is no such thing as Espresso anymore. It's called instrumentation testing, and it's definitely integration test. Definitely.
So it's not
XUI test, yes.
So it's not like Apple's new oranges, right?
XUI test, yes. That's why I said XUI test. I consider black box automation, but Espresso is integration test automation.
Yeah, it's a black box. However, it's not that black box as Appium, right? Because you still have source code right here in your project, and there is an actual way to pass something in the source code through the app delegate in launch argument, so you can notify the app somehow that, hey, I'm testing you, so please don't go to production server, don't launch the authentication process, just mock your already authenticated. Do this, because I'm UI testing. That's, even if it's black boxed, it still has a small hole, you can pass some arguments there, and that helps. Thank you guys.
All right, thank you very much. That was an amazing presentation. So, our next, before my favorite part for networking, we have several events. Our next meetup will be at company Acorns. Anybody heard about them? Yeah? Yeah. So it's in Orange County. They invited us to host their next meetup. Yeah, as you know, you can sign up to the meetup. About us, you can find in testpro.io. We have Facebook page, we have LinkedIn profile, and we also do 2 boot camps. One is for QA Basic, for people who want to transition from different career to QA, and another one is for QA Innovation, web, not mobile.